On behalf of Pilot, our 70,000 trucking fleet customers, and the 1 million customers that we serve in our stores every day to keep America moving, I want to thank you for this opportunity to testify here today, to describe the situation and highlight the potential consequences of to the country if this is left unresolved. As mentioned at the beginning, we want to be part of the solution, but the current situation is untenable for us. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Next question, are there any places where a switching order or there is some alternative could get you what you needed during this time?
Right now, UP is responsible for over 40 or 45% of our DEF supply. So if they had trackage rights, I mean, we've obviously gone and tried to talk to some other railroads saying like, hey, can you help us out? But most of them are unable to because of the constraints they have on their system and they don't have trackage rights.
What was the message that UP sent? That tell us how they explained it to you.
The way they explained it to us was they basically, and let me get the exact numbers. So they basically sent us a note saying that in the last week, you shipped about 190 cars for the week, and we want you to reduce it by 46 cars, basically about 6 cars a day. And otherwise, we're going to embargo you. They gave us a week to do it. They have not embargoed us yet. And we haven't reduced the cars because we would be in deep trouble if we reduce the cars. We have reached out back to the UP a number of times asking for either a meeting with their senior leadership so that we can explain the consequences to them. We've had our outside counsel reach out to UP's outside counsel, but really have not had any engagement back from UP at this point.
I thought you related it to they were saying the people who shipped a lot, those are the ones we're cutting. Is that the way you understood it?
Yes. So they according to their metric, they feel like we've increased our shipments from January to March. What's actually happened is we've just taken over as shipper on a number of the cars. The total number of cars has not really changed. So, but if you look at it with Pilot as the shipper, we have increased by about 60 cars a month. But in reality, those cars were coming to our locations anyways.
I'm still trying to figure out a business model where a company says, please don't buy our product. I'm sure somebody will explain that one to me before the day is out. I meant to say earlier, by the way, that Robert Primus, of course, is still with us. So why don't I ask Robert if he has any questions, and then we'll see if there are any up here, and then we'll go forward. So, but thank you very much.
Good morning, Marty. So are we not doing the whole panel? Are we just doing just this individual?
It's going to do this witness because he has to get out of here, Mr. Konar.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Konar, thank you very much for agreeing to actually come before the panel and talk about this. Can you talk about sort of the downstream effect if this embargo were to take place on the industry? Like how would it affect the price going forward?
So I'd break that up in 2 pieces. One is if the embargo were to take place and we were not able to move DEF on the UP, we would probably at this point lose about 35% to 40% of our DEF supply where we do not have alternatives. And, from an annual perspective, that would mean we would miss about 100 million gallons of DEF. And, you multiply that by, like I said, each rail car is worth about 5 million miles of trucking. If you lose 100 million gallons of DEF, it would be absolutely catastrophic because we don't just supply ourselves, we supply a lot of the market because we supply 30% of DEF in the United States. So I mean, the consequences there, I mean, not only would I get fired, but there'd be a lot more to it. But
you should be held holding the bag. I mean, obviously, it's not your fault in terms of you're cutting it back. I mean, my question I was trying to get to is, so if you've got to cut back 35 to 40% of DEF, you say that the trucks after 2010, all of them require it. What does that go to the cost of of purchasing that? I mean, where's the price now? Where if that doomsday were to happen,
actually you just couldn't get it. Why, Sharon? You just could not get the DEF because there isn't the U.S. numbers. The U.S. consumes about 1 billion gallons of DEF. We supply more than 300 million, somewhere between 300 and 350 million. You could not replace 100 million gallons of DEF in any kind of reasonable time frame. You could maybe replace it by next year.
So what happens economically? I mean,
it's an absolute disaster. I mean, trucking is already so tight, and we're having so many issues with freight, right? So it would be, the simple way for me to say is, it would be equivalent to removing 10% of the trucks from the road today.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
For those of us outside your industry, could you just explain what DEF is and why it's important?
Ma'am, I should have started with that. DEF is diesel emissions fluid. It's a urea derivative which reduces NOx emissions coming out of the tailpipe of trucks. And with all the CAFE standards and the clean air standards over time, NOx emissions have been reduced pretty substantially. And since 2010, there's a rule basically that you cannot make trucks that don't use DEF because you have to have the NOx emissions reduced. So all 2010 plus vintage trucks, and there aren't that many that go too far back because, a long distance truck is doing 250,000 miles a year or so. You don't survive longer than that. Pretty much all the trucks right now have to have DEF, and you actually can't turn the engine on if your DEF tank's empty. So it's not a choice.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Marty.
Very helpful. Robert, do you have something else? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just a follow-up question, if you don't mind. You were talking about your production now. Have you changed at all, in terms of your production? Why are you sort of threatening this embargo? I mean, with all the cars, are you adding cars because of what reason? Are you coming? Is it because of greater production? You said that production's been steady. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're actually not adding cars. So what has happened is we've actually become the shipper of record on a number of cars that we were not before. So we still got the same number of cars going, but we've taken control, becoming the shipper, because we needed to have some more flexibility with the rail issues we've been having as to where to, kind of where to move the cars and how to move the cars. So, and this has happened both in DEF and our ethanol.
I think I've lost you. I can't hear you.
One second, we're working on it.
Okay. I can't hear anybody. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
We'll be right with you, Robert. We're working on it now.